Hello everyone, welcome back to my craft table. I love making floral cards and I have some gorgeous products to show you in today's video from Spellbinders. This folder is a 3D embossing folder and it is called Patchwork. I'm holding it up in front of a piece of dark cardstock. This looks like it's the Onyx Black from Spellbinders, just so you could get a better look at it. And then I love large floral stamps, especially when it's a floral cluster like this one. This is the clear stamp of the month and it's called Friendship Garden. You can also get it with the dies, and you get a large die that will cut out the whole cluster as well as this rectangle at the bottom. There's a die for one of the sentiments that says hello you, and then you get a die that'll cut out a couple of the single floral images. I believe this one goes to this little daisy. And then this goes up at the top here. So if you want single flowers, you can do that as well. The other sentiments say, "You're a wonderful friend. Thanks for just being you. And happy birthday to you." So I picked up a few products from the Spellbinders shop, and I've had these sitting in my drawer for a while, and I thought I'm going to pull them out and play with them today. I have this heart glimmer plate as well as some heart dies, and some new foil from the shop. This foil set is called Satin Pastels, and it gives a very subtle look, but I wanted to have something to put behind my floral image. I'm going to do a little bit of hot foiling. I'll use a piece of tape as a hinge to tape this heart plate in place, and I can just flip it over. I'm going to cut down the foil a little bit, and I'm going to add a piece of tape on the other side just to keep it in place so it doesn't shift when I pull it off of the hot glimmer system and run it through my Platinum 6. And let's peel off the plate and see what this heart looks like. Kind of hot, and I'm impatient, so I have to pull it off right away. I should probably let it cool, but here it is. Isn't that just beautiful? I'll go ahead and cut that out with one of the coordinating dies. For my first card, I'm going to be stamping on acetate with some Stays-On ink, and I was just showing you the cleaner that goes with it. This is a really fun technique. I believe I did this in a previous video not long ago. And I have the tissue paper on the back of this acetate just so you can see it a little bit better. I'm going to stamp out the large image onto the acetate, and then I will use the coordinating die to cut it out. I only show one stamping, but I do stamp it up several times just to get my lines good and dark. I've since re-inked this pad, but when I was using this, I didn't have the re-inker yet, and so I was just trying to squish on as much ink as I could get a dark impression. And here it is, ready to go. I'm just going to set this aside to dry for a minute. And immediately I like to use the Stays-On cleaner to clean off the stamp. I'll pull out a baby wipe to wipe up the ink. And then this stamp will be ready to go for the next card. I'm going to tape the die in place so that it won't shift when I cut it out. And then I will take this off camera and run it through my Platinum 6. And here it is, all cut out. I love how it cuts around the stems at the bottom. It looks so pretty. And here it is ready to color in. Let me show you a background. I swapped out the heart for a dome with a piece of the peach satin foil, and it didn't foil perfectly, but that's all right because it's going to be, all of the imperfections will be hidden with this acetate floral. I flipped my floral piece over and I'm coloring on the back with some alcohol ink markers. The brighter the color, the more it's going to show up on this acetate. I do choose a few purple colors to put on some of the flowers, and they just didn't show up very dark or vibrant, but that's okay. Most of the flowers do. And this is really fast and fun to color in. There's so many fun ways that you could color in this gorgeous floral cluster. Once I'm done with the coloring, I will flip this over and show you what it looks like. I'm not taking the ink clear up to the tips of the flower petals because I want some of the satin foil to show through. But here it is just on a piece of cardstock, and then here it is on the foil. It just looks so much more vibrant with a little bit of the satin foil behind it. Next, I'm going to stamp out the sentiment, starting with this rectangle. I'll stamp the sentiment right inside of this, and then I can cut it out with the coordinating die. I chose the sentiment that says, "Thanks for just being you." I thought that was so cute. Now let's put this card together. I'll attach the dome with some foam squares. And I'm attaching it onto a piece of Barely Peach cardstock. The sentiment, I also put some foam strips underneath it. And I'll prop that up as well. To attach the acetate onto my dome, I'm using little micro dots in select places on the back of the acetate. And I'm just going to put them down at the bottom of a few of the flowers. These will secure the acetate very nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and attach it to the dome. And then I'll attach this panel onto a top folding A2 sized white card base. To hide the micro dots or the glue dots, I'm going to pull out some pink gems and just put them right over the micro dots. And these are going to be just at the base of each of the flowers, or the larger flowers anyway. So this will add a little bit of sparkle, as well as serving the purpose of hiding the micro dots. I'm going to put one more pink gem on the bottom left there. And let me show you a close-up of the finished card. So this was a pretty fast way to color in this floral cluster. It didn't require any blending. You can't really blend on the acetate. So it does look more, I don't know, what would you call it, graphic looking or blocky, but I love how it turned out. On card number 2, I'm going to stamp out this image onto a piece of colored pencil cardstock. This is from Stonehenge. I'll put a link for it in the description box below. This is great paper to use with your colored pencils. So I pulled out my Polychromos pencils and I'm going to do some quick coloring with these. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit because I'm just doing some very basic coloring. I like to use 3 different tones of each color, a light, medium, and a dark. This will add some nice dimension to the flowers. I'll add yellow to the center of this flower. I'm going to bring in a little bit of a dark brown, just to add shading inside the flower. So I'll do the rest of my coloring off camera. And once I'm done, I like to put it back in my Mini Misty and freshen up the lines by stamping it out again. And of course, I'm going to use the coordinating die again. Again, I'm going to tape this in place and then take it off camera to cut it out. But isn't this such a pretty flower piece? So this is ready to go on the front of card number 2. I'm also going to use the Patchwork 3D embossing folder with some Dahlia pink cardstock. I'm just trying to center it perfectly in this embossing folder. And then here it is all ready to go. Let me hold this up close so you can really see this gorgeous 3D pattern. I'm going to use some foam strips to pop up the flowers. I'll just put the sentiment at the bottom to gauge where I want this to go. And the sentiment I stamped out says, "You're a wonderful friend." And again, this is just going to go at the bottom. On this card, I wanted to use a bow, so I pulled out some black and white baker's twine. And before I attach the Dahlia Pink cardstock onto the card base, I'm going to tape a little bit of the twine on the back. And then I'll drape it across the front and tape it down at the bottom on the back. And then I can add a bow just between the flowers and the sentiment. This baker's twine adds a fun little striped element. I love stripes and florals together, and this is another way to put them together instead of a striped cardstock. I'll use a micro dot behind the bow to keep this in place, and then I'm going to use some liquid glue to attach it to the card base. I'll go right over the tape. If you're worried about the string adding some bulk behind this, you could, of course, add some foam squares and just not go over the twine. But I thought it looked all right. It has a lot of dimension anyway with the embossing folder. So here it is, all done. I added a few black gemstones to the front of this card just to tie in the black and white baker's twine. Moving on to card number 3. The star of this show is going to be the 3D embossing folder. Again, this is called Patchwork. I embossed it with some Glacier Blue cardstock. I did this twice and then cut out the center panel. To make the flowers on this center panel really pop out, I'm using some Broken China Distress Oxide ink on the flat side of the 3D embossing folder. Then I can just pop this panel back in. Now this was an afterthought. I didn't know I was going to do this, so I had already embossed this piece, but you could emboss it at the same time that you add the ink. But here it is ready to go, and it just adds a darker background for the flowers. For the sentiment this time, I'm pulling out a set I bought on sale recently at the Spellbinders shop. They have a few stamps and dies in this style, and I wanted to collect them all. They're just gorgeous. This one is the Thank You stamp and sentiment. I'll stamp out the largest thank you and then use the coordinating dies. And the coordinating dies just cut it out beautifully. I'll show you what I mean here in just a minute. I'm using some VersaFine Onyx Black ink on some white 80-pound Nina Solar white cardstock to cut this out. And then I'm going to cut out the words separately because the dies just didn't seem to fit that close together. So I'm just going to cut out the thank. And isn't that just lovely how it cuts out around the letters like that? Now I can cut out the U. And then after I cut this out, I am going to stamp out one more sentiment. And this is going to say, "From all of us." Now we can put this card together. This is a piece of foam that I'm going to glue on the back of my smaller panel. This will just serve to lift it up from the background a little bit. I'll add more glue to attach it to the Glacier Blue 5.5 by 4.25 inch panel. And now I can attach the sentiment. And this is just going down flat. And I'll put this at the bottom of the card. I want to tuck the banner behind the U, so I'm going to put this down first. I just cut this out with my paper trimmer and fishtailed one end. And now I can glue the U at the end of this. And now I can put this on a card base. For a touch of bling, I am going to add a few silver gems around the sentiment. And then let me give you a close-up look at card number 3. The embossed flowers really pop because of that blue china ink. It just adds such a lovely touch to this card. I hope you enjoyed today's video and learned some fun techniques. I hope you give them a try if you've never tried them before. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. I hope you all have a wonderful crafty day. Until next time, bye.